Hello everybody, welcome back to Aire Australia. Hello Nigel, how are you today?
I'm very excited because we're in my home here, my home away from home at realestate.com.au's headquarters in our podcasting studio for a change, which is lovely. And today is all about real estate. It's all about artificial intelligence and real estate. And those two things coincide in one particular place and a couple of particular people, one of whom we have in the room today, our guest, Sarah Bell.
Welcome, Sarah.
Thanks so much.
Real estate, you and I have both worked in real estate for a while, and I was so pleased, excited and astounded to find someone with such an advanced level of thinking and business and entrepreneurship in the crossover between artificial intelligence and real estate. There's a lot of jokes which we can't repeat here about the artificial intelligence and real estate. But today is really an exploration of how you as an entrepreneur, as a scientist, as a AI mathematician fascinated by all these things came to be in this room with us today. I'd love people to be fascinated by that. You're our first entrepreneur on the podcast.
And also our first guest from Brisbane. So it's nice to see us getting a bit more of a national presence.
We'd love to explore all those things today.
Sounds good. I do. I like the label entrepreneur. I've never really thought of myself as that because when people ask me what I do, I tend to just panic because it's everything. I do whatever needs to be done. I'm just insatiably curious by nature. So sure, let's be an entrepreneur.
Let's start there. What was the path to that led you into this, well, not this room, but the field you've become a leader in?
Well, I'm not sure how far you want to go back, but in my undergraduate days, I worked for my behavioural science professors and I did a lot of their qualitative and quantitative analysis. So I used to do all the schlep work that research assistants do at uni, and at the time I thought it was pretty good because it paid better than bartending, to be honest. So I really enjoyed doing that. And, I went on then and I had a few different kind of roles. I worked as an investigator at the Commonwealth Ombudsman, and then I met this tall bloke in real estate, guys, and the rest is history, as they say. I was abducted into the industry then, into the family business, and just sort of took scientific methodology to real estate. And I did everything from, I remember I had a pregnancy at the front desk, just trying to understand how first line of response worked and what the bottlenecks were there and how we could just improve communication and the kickback and stop those kind of flow on inefficiencies. Back in the very early days, sort of 6-7 years ago, we were in our little business, which was just my little lab, come to think of it now, we were trialing all kinds of automation. So our property managers would just enter a tenant's email address, and we kind of had this robot process automation very early on that would just then take care of communication through the vacate process. It's very hands-off for the humans.
So I think our industry is probably renowned for the amount of waste that exists in it. Very human, high empathy, high creativity, low ability to store a record for another occasion. And as a result, a lot of time lost, a lot of trust lost. And these are areas of business opportunity as far as I can see, for sure. So that's how you ended up in real estate. The Brisbane tech community, was it supportive of? Did you link to them? Were they supportive of this idea?
I think, quite organically. So my business partner, we make a robot called Rita, and we got into this bad habit of calling ourselves Rita's mum and dad. So Rita's dad, if you like, was a friend of mine, and he was kind of tinkering, in this, and had some sort of early ideas, and I couldn't stay away. And I just kept saying, no, I think we need to humanize it. I don't want to log in. No one needs another password. And so we kind of just came together and really created it in a very domain specific way. So it had to solve the problems of real estate. And I think for us, it was really important that we were both from real estate and that we didn't kind of get distracted by the broader tech community, and because there's so much cool stuff you can do. And I think we didn't want to create a solution for a problem that didn't exist. We spent a lot of time really, really deep in in the domain, working out what problem we needed to solve, and then building from there.
So if it was today and you were starting out, you'd be in the, River City incubator, you would be entertaining venture capitalists for half of your time, you'd be drinking lattes, you would have all of that kind of modern cult of
we
the
have
startup
hoodies
world.
and we normally wear t-shirts, but yeah, look, I mean, Ian, we did have a couple of days in River City Labs and just decided it wasn't our scene. I think we're both kind of more library people. It's very noisy in there. It's sort of hectic, and it is sort of entrepreneurial and that kind of hustle vibe and all the rest of it. And we just really wanted to get out in the field and work with customers, and we wanted to just, have kind of a much more, insulated space where we could really kind of flesh it out.
And have you ever labelled yourself as a data scientist? Or, some of our people just came back from Mobile World Congress going, I've been a data scientist since I was 7 years old, because something that adds up a group of numbers is now an algorithm that's counted as AI.
Well, a cupcake recipe is an algorithm, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
It's a step sequence and a bunch of ingredients. So, look, all these labels are fun now, aren't they? But at the end of the day, I think we're all problem solvers, whether we're in business or in science. You start off with some kind of intuition or hypothesis, and that's what Turing did. It wasn't necessarily that he built this computer out of science. It was his human intuition that was driving the steps that was involved in his early breakthrough.
So tell us a bit about Rita, and what does Rita do?
Rita does lots of things. So like other kind of AI bots, she has core skills, and we bundle those together to create job descriptions. Since there's no kind of two businesses, two markets that are exactly alike, we can, databases that are exactly alike, we can't really say that Rita does just this one specific thing. But I guess at her very core, she normalizes data from the CRM that gives us a really clear indication of where she can be most useful. And she then mashes that against other data from the marketplace, from other open source databases. And her, core functionality is the opportunity engine. And so what she would do for a real estate agent, a sales agent, or a business development manager is look at the CRM as a warehouse of latent opportunity. And then she will find context, find reason from that other data, and then score it and suggest the most appropriate people for you to connect with each and every day.
So for new business, and also for managing your existing accounts, and so it's almost like next best conversation for real estate agents.
We call it the next best right thing. We've got a big mural in our office with a street sign that's NBRT Street, and it stands for next best right thing. So Rita's always looking for the next best right thing for the human to do.
And how long have you been going for now?
The development cycle started in May 2017. Rita was born in August that year, so we're coming up to Rita's second birthday. We go by Rita's birthday.
Is Rita an acronym or just a...
Yeah, Rita stands for Real Estate Intelligent Transaction Assistant, but Rita's faster.
I'm fascinated. I've had the luck to visit workplaces that have Rita implemented, and I've seen the before and after picture in a particular branch of an agency in Perth, which I am astonished at the transformation and the result. But it's equally been a generational transformation for that agency, and a bunch of people didn't cope with the idea of working with an AI. The after picture involves a group of people who refer to Rita in a humanized way, that Rita is part of their team. In their conversation, they will say, Rita will get that for us, or why don't you ask Rita? Which is a disconcerting view of the future to some extent. It's like, wow, they are actually sitting alongside us as a team members. Do you're a very humanistic person. Do you humanize Rita deliberately, or is it something that naturally happens to us?
It was both. If I can make that call, I think in terms of, physical robots that kind of we share space with, in the physical world, we're used to kind of naming them, and Kate Darling from MIT has done so much research into how we kind of naturally develop empathy for things that move around. And, I know in Sakioko's robot Relay, they've deliberately designed this, Android bot that delivers packages throughout hotels to have, big eyes and things like that, so that humans will take on that kind of paternalistic or maternalistic trait and take care of the robot in the physical space and help it out if it gets stuck and all that sort of stuff. So, you know, the process is called anthropomorphization, where we apply human traits to an inanimate thing. But Rita doesn't have a physical form. She's not, and that's where it's quite different than some of these other anthropomorphized bots, is that Rita she's a logo, really. She's lines and lines and lines of code in the cloud. And so really we're humanizing a concept, we're humanizing mathematical function. And for me, that's been a curiosity in and of itself as to how can we, particularly, you know, we develop this as proprietary tech, and, you know, that never starts out perfect. So for us, it very much kind of was this organic, oh, hi, it's Sarah, it's Rita's mum, like on the phone with customers. And then this fascinating thing happened that they started referring to themselves as Rita's aunties and Rita's uncles, and kind of our client base who was so involved in the development and the feedback cycle of Rita. We're all kind of raising Rita collaboratively, and it's created a beautiful environment between our developers and our customers, and the voice of customer is therefore so represented in the family as we raise Rita together. I think not just making her human, but making her infant and growing has helped us with tolerance of early system errors. Rita doesn't sort of make the same mistakes that she used to, but, you know, back in the beginning, she had to learn what to do when there was like a phishing email that came through a portal trying to sell something. You know, Rita didn't know what to do with that. And people are tech fatigued, but if it's baby Rita who's just turned 1, they're kind of more inclined to be a bit tolerant.
I'm not looking forward to teenage Rita, to be honest. As someone who has teenagers in the household,
Likewise.
You can get a lot of talk back, you know.
I was just thinking that I doubt that there's someone who calls themselves Tay's mother or father in the Microsoft building these days after the last year.
It is interesting, and I think what I admire about what you've done is breaking through the process of selling, to be honest. You know, you were in business. This wasn't a social science research project. This is a business. And, you know, you're an inspiration to a lot of people in Australia to go, you know what, you can take this science and all these hard bits, find a business opportunity and actually, dare I say it, make money.
And look, I'll tell you as well, kind of, because that's the challenge with a lot of this new technology. And I think that the language of this new technology is so new to everyone. I remember just so clearly this day I was sitting down with Ian, and he hates when I tell this story, but it's hyper nerdy. I said to him, you know, in the kind of 15th century when the conquistadors arrived in Central America as white men with beards and got off the boats with a horse, like, how did the guy that saw him go and tell his friend that he'd just seen a horse? Right? They're not native to Central America. He just didn't have language to explain that, like kind of bigger than a llama, shorter neck. Like, yeah. How do you explain that? And so in terms of trying to get people to understand all of these, you know, $10 tech words that we were talking about before, they mean things to us. You know, an algorithm is a very definite thing, and, you know, kind of data inputs and APIs and all of this tech jargon and stuff. It's not relevant to our customers. It's relevant to our process. But they need to be able to know what the horse does, and, you know, in terms of evangelizing Rita or adopting her in the way that they have, and our customers have been amazing. They're our marketing machine, to be honest. We needed to help them understand that Rita could feel just like an assistant, just like a VA. She just lives in the cloud.
So if I was to ask you for some advice as somebody who's maybe in the field of science or a startup in this space, do you have a plan? Did you sit down with an ambition when you first started your business? Was it a one-page plan or a giant PowerPoint deck saying we are going to be the world's greatest, et cetera, et cetera? Any practical advice for getting to the stage where you're at?
Well, I think in terms of honing that intuition that's going to drive your experimental process, the development process, you know, we kind of have this blue sky vision that every business will have a digital assistant. It just makes sense. And I often say that the first robots, the first automatons were mentioned in Homer's Iliad. which was in 763 BCE or something. So for nearly 3,000 years, we've kind of been imagining this inexhaustible, low-cost workforce that we don't have to worry about to do all the stuff that we don't want to do. Those automatons in ancient Greece, their job was to make weapons, so the soldiers didn't have to. So the soldiers could just fight, do stuff that was more valuable. We've been imagining that for that long in human history. It's something that we want. So now we just have faster computers and access to more data and, machine learning, so we can make that happen, which is pretty cool. But in terms of like what guides that intuition, we have 3 questions and that kind of frame all of our inquiry. And look, generically, they kind of apply to all AI. The first one is, how can we connect humans to computers in a way that makes them collectively more intelligent? Because you look at what computers are good at, and that's got limitations, and you look at what humans are good at, and that's got limitations. But if you work in parallel instead of in series, then you're smarter collectively. So that's question 1. And then question 2 is, how do we connect humans to each other in ways that it's more intelligent? We've looked at ways to orchestrate work in teams and prioritize work for different people in teams, so that everybody's doing the right thing for the right reason at the right time, by the right person. And that's been a really cool area of research that's kind of been neglected in terms of, private enterprise. But, there's AI driving DART, which is the US defense AI that makes sure that all of their human resources are in exactly the right place that they need to be all the time. So why can't we have that efficiency in, small to medium enterprise in Australian and New Zealand real estate? And then the third question is, how can we connect people to information in ways that's more intelligent? And that might be a more relevant response, a more hyper-personalised experience from marketing even, or it could be, a quicker response. And so these are the 3 key questions that we've found that most of the problems that we come across really, really fall into. And the exciting thing is that once you solve one problem, you just get the next level of the deeper problem. And that's just an eternally fascinating process.
And have you found hooking into the skills required to kind of take a concept and turn it into a working product? Is the Brisbane tech community, skills are there? Has it been straightforward to hook into the right skills and people?
I think we've been very lucky with who's come on board. So we've got, so Ian, my business partner, he's a brilliant architect, I guess, in terms of building the framework for Rita, and under him we've got, great kind of systems engineers, and then we've got, other developers and problem solvers, data scientists, machine learning people. And I think just understanding what everyone's good at and pulling that together has really been Ian's strength. And the challenge is cascading, right? And that's the only word I have for it. You can see getting a really clear picture of the problem is tough. Getting a clear picture of the solution is tougher, although directly relevant to your framework of the problem. And then in terms of just executing the solution, you really need the right parts of the machine to build it. And so we've been very lucky in terms of talent. Some of our guys have recruited their friends, which has been helpful. But yeah, it's in our team as well. There's, at Aire, there's so many different types of intelligence. And I love that everyone's so very, very, very different and just brings something unique and collaborative to the discussion.
And obviously a lot of the conversation around AI always seems to come, jobs always comes up. And, have you faced into some customers that see this as a potential threat, or, has that been a challenge early on or even now?
Will robots replace real estate agents is a question I get asked many, many, many times a day. And I think it is, it comes back to that series parallel thinking that we were just talking about, this idea that either a robot's going to do it or a human's going to do it. That debate is going on in driverless car research in the AI community. I kind of don't see it any differently. Like, will we have completely autonomous vehicles or will we have human drivers? It's like, well, why can't they both drive the car? And when the human's got a greater confidence that their skills and perception, they can override the computer. And when the computer can see the thing that the human has missed and needs to brake, why can't it override? And so collectively, we're much better drivers if we're both driving the car.
Yeah.
So I'm in real estate. One of my frustrations is a lack of focus on the simple things, like the atoms of AI being data. It's a bit of a mess out there, to be honest. I think the number of customer record management systems, the number of short-term employment things where your customers and then they walk out the door with a real estate agent or property manager accordingly. So is that a barrier to being successful at establishing a bot or an automation like Rita into this industry?
Yeah, data is the fuel, if you like, of artificial intelligence. And it's been interesting to kind of frame data in a way that agents are going to understand, because they've been taught to collect data. They get that. And then what? We sort of bulk email them until they unsubscribe, or, they kind of don't know, or we like death by categorization in the CRM. And they'll do that, but then I've gone into lots of offices and they just don't know how to query data through the CRM. So, show of hands, who knows how to do a search in the CRM for property owners in a particular suburb that no one's spoken to in 12 months or more? And the answer I usually get is crickets, to be honest. So some of that like advanced query skill with the CRM, it's just kind of a skills gap in the industry. And that's cool, because data query is an excellent job for artificial intelligence.
You envisage a day where they'll just be able to ask that question in natural language and say, hey, Rita,
yeah, of course.
Who in Richmond hasn't been spoken to this month?
Well, I'm hoping we can even skip that step. So for the agent to even do the mental labour to think that's the call list I want, that's still a reasonably unintelligent call list. It's just like a field timer, And that kind of, everyone asks me, why don't you build a chatbot? It's because I hate chatbots, but also because I kind of don't see them as augmenting the human experience. They're just a different type of, like, chatbots largely are just a different type of interface. So if you were to use that natural language and ask a chatbot or a voice interface, can you go and find me this list? You've still got to think to command it. So we've designed Rita so that she actually feels like an assistant. So she's not waiting for you to kind of tell her what to do. She's observing, she's thinking, she's being triggered by different events in the marketplace. And the marketplace changes. It's like a river, you don't step in the same one twice. There's stock coming on, there's stock moving all the time. And Rita's on top of that and monitoring that and proactively suggesting to you reasons to call, rather than just this kind of golden retriever functionality that chatbots have. So, chatbots are cool, don't get me wrong. It's a cool interface. It's a cool way to connect with a computer. But I think AI has the capability to be much more proactive than that.
And do you see a future where Rita talks directly to customers?
Absolutely. That would be, that's so cool. Agents spend half their lives in their cars. How cool would that be, driving along? Hi, Rita. I've got, 10 minutes. Who should I call? She said, I think you should call Mary. Mary lives at 12 Smith Street and I've just seen 15 Smith Street come on the market. I'll dial a number now.
And do you think people see things like the Google Duplex demonstration from, what was it, last year, I think, and things like that are generally making people feel more comfortable with using tools like Rita? It
was a great kind of catalyst for outrage, the Google Duplex demonstration, wasn't it? The idea that it didn't disclose it was a robot and all the rest of it. But, there's this concept of multi-series AI where my AI, personal AI, will ring your hairdressing salon AI, and the two bots will make the appointment and the humans can just get on with their lives. And so I just think that's a great efficiency. But in terms of, I think a lot of people probably thought it was a nice cheat sheet to prospecting, that it could somehow replace emotional labour rather than just simply administrative labour, like booking a haircut couldn't be a more banal experience. I think it comes down to your strategic adoption of this technology and the regulatory environment you're working with, which is not really conducive to duplex in Australia. But yeah, there's no emotional labor involved in booking a haircut. But if you're going to kind of have a conversation that requires the sort of anthropological permissions that you need to have to get into someone's lounge room, to talk to them about their home, their cave, that kind of primal sanctuary, then you've got to do a bit of, you mightn't have to do the mental labor anymore. Rita can do that now and tell you who to call, but you've got to do the emotional labor.
And obviously I feel like your combination with your co-founder is like a good example of maybe the secret sauce in applying this tech, with your obviously strong social sciences background and talking to you, very humanistic. And obviously that is such a key element in tech like this, when you're thinking not just about the tech, but how it's actually going to...
Yeah, I think of Ian and myself as like just the two hemispheres of a brain. I'm all colour and he's all grey equations, and it just works like together universally. I think it just works.
Do you both have the same deep expertise around the real estate industry?
Yeah, so Ian was Chief of Strategy for an international real estate group. He's always worked within the real estate industry and at corporate level, whereas mine was frontline. So again, it's similar, but it's just a different perspective.
Front office, back office kind of.
Yeah. And I think if we had the same experience, we'd be useless. If we agreed all the time, we wouldn't need the other one. So the kind of creative tension, if you like, that comes from our different perspective, I think has been really fruitful.
Sarah, it's 2024. Totally been massively successful. You've got a great customer service team based in Brisbane servicing the world, and this telephone call comes in. Hello, one of my people's fallen in love with Rita and has run away with her and is trying to marry her. Now, it's not total science fiction, because the way you were describing Rita before is heading directly in the direction of the movie Her, where Samantha, Scarlett Johansson, is able to maintain that level of interaction. I think you've probably seen my party trick at talks on AI about how simple it would be to replace the average Australian male in a scripted conversation over text messaging. We only need 6 words: yes, no, good, real good, maybe, I'll be home soon.
I've got the milk.
Oh, okay, 7. We've just expanded our bots range. Are we heading to that world? Are you creating a world where people fall in love with Rita?
Well, I think I agree with you. Him would be much easier to program than her. Yeah, it's a very, very easy decision tree, but we do it today while I'm here. But look, I think, in terms of people that think they're going to have like an organic human relationship with a robot, that's kind of their subjective experience of it. Have you seen that MTV show Catfish?
Yes.
Yeah. So Catfish is where two people are having a long distance relationship via the internet, except for one is more often than not, and the best shows are when they're liars. One has kind of created this sort of alias and this fake profile and this whole kind of fake set of circumstances, and it is quite sort of sad. But you understand watching that experience that the person that's been having the relationship, or like organically or honestly, if you like, their whole relationship is subjective. They're getting some kind of, subjective payoff from it. So I've thought about this. I don't have the answer, but I know that loneliness is an epidemic, particularly among older people, and the morbidity of loneliness is higher than smoking. So why couldn't you introduce artificial intelligence and technology to help alleviate that problem with, vulnerable, lonely, isolated, maybe older people? Maybe they will be our carers. Rodney Brooks seems to think so.
And look, I've got Wobot, that little interactive, so basic conversational eliiza, I have to say. It's like a mini eliiza from the 60s, and that it doesn't take a great deal to have a natural language conversation and through that conversation feel better.
A lot of digital assistants have been named after, given women's names and started with women's voices, and there's obviously it's created a bit of flashback in the industry as well. Why do you think they are named after women all the time?
We had a bit of pushback about why did you make it a girl, and are you going to create like a boy robot? And we thought about it, and we rearranged the letters in lots of different ways. We were going to have an arty, ARTI, and then we sort of thought, no, we wouldn't do that. And firstly, it's because Rita's not technically a girl; she's a machine, and she's kind of a concept. So it's not kind of appropriate to put a gender on that. But I think the constraints of our language require us to give genders to machines. We refer to boats as she's. We refer to airplanes and cars as she's quite often. And I don't think it's been deliberate. I just think it's been a kind of feminine machine pronoun thing that we've just inherited. Lots of people call their boats and cars girls, and that all girl, and she and her. So.
Now, Sarah, one of the traditions on the show is to ask people what kind of a future are we creating, and to anchor that in movies, because everyone knows the movies. So if you think of the Jetsons, we think of Star Trek, we think of maybe Star Wars, that's probably a long way away. But
Blade Runner, Altered Carbon.
The Terminator, and of course Her, which we talked about a moment ago. Could you anchor a future you see for our next generations in a movie kind of a vision or a sci-fi vision?
Do you know what? I can't remember the name of the film, but Justin Timberlake and Amanda Seyfried were in it. And we were so equalised by technology that the only wealth that mattered was time.
I think it might be called Time.
Is it? And everyone had this sort of electronic wearable, if you like. We're all into wearables at the moment. That was counting down the seconds and the minutes, and very poor people had hours left, and if they didn't get sort of a top-up of minutes or a transfer of minutes from the wealthy people, then they would expire, which is a nice technological way of saying die, isn't it? And I think when barriers to wealth have been broken down in terms of, education largely defined wealth, defined opportunity, and knowledge now is democratized. You don't need to finish school to be a billionaire. You need to learn how to learn, and so you need to learn how to self-manage, and that will kind of get you there. They're kind of the skills that will get you there. But I think in terms of as humans, there's one thing that we just won't be able to escape, and that's our fixed capacity of time and the requirements that we have to sleep and eat and limitations and everything. So the 1%ers that you'll be able to gain in terms of time and capacity and productivity, if we can think about that as the minute countdown, like if you can do more with your time, that will be the competitive battleground.
A bit like that Black Mirror episode where the two women upload themselves into the cloud to live their sort of synthetic future together. It's a scary episode completely.
It's funny, I was thinking about this the other day because we've obviously reflected on movies and the future, and if I described a future where your boss is an algorithm and your boss, this algorithm assigns you work, and there's a countdown clock running that makes sure you complete that activity before the countdown clock runs down, and if you don't complete it in that time, you see your shifts reduced the following week.
That sounds like a nightmare.
That was an ABC article ran on employees at the Amazon warehouse in Dandenong, just outside Melbourne, that went live. Was published by the ABC a couple of weeks ago. And interestingly enough, since then, Amazon have announced a few changes. So everyone who works in that factory or fulfillment centre, I should probably call it, as a casual employee through a staffing agency, so no permanent employees. Amazon have since come out and said they're going to hire more permanent employees. But that was actually the story told by some employees who'd left. I thought that was quite confronting to hear that.
Absolutely, and I think that there is a deeper conversation that we need to have in all of this. We talk about the miracle of big data, but we don't always get to talk about bias in data, and we don't always get to look at how that data is, or even the bias that we can generate through an algorithm, and that would just be a much more efficient bias than some of the human biases that we'd like to eliminate from our world. So Professor Lowe from MIT, he's an economist, and he's been using AI to try and eliminate bias from the financial markets. So looking at what are actual factors of default instead of, just disqualifying single young females or single mums from having a loan. And I know there's recruitment AI that looks at trying to hedge some of the cognitive bias that might impact hiring in terms of gender bias, racial bias, and things like that. So I think a lot of it comes down to the engineering and the formulation, like I say, that intuition that drives how these algorithms come together. Because you can engineer for bias, you can engineer for horrific human impact, or you can make a decision to engineer to fix some of this stuff that we see that we suffer with.
And have you had to have an ethical conversation with some of our friends in the property management end of real estate about those biases? And is that part of the role of being an industry leader around artificial intelligence, to educate those people?
Look, I think, when you start to have robots and humans and, all different, like I said, that you start to kind of get this real diversification in people, and you start to understand people work differently, and then you start to actually have more visibility over the data. And I would love to be able to do some research to justify that ethical conversation. I would love to be able to have some precision tenancy outcomes on, what actually makes a good tenant. Like, could we have a precision algorithm that scores a suitable tenant that might not be based on some of the criteria that's official or unofficial that's being used? Could we create a democratic, fair access to rental property with the assistance of a bias-free AI?
That is a tremendous aspiration, and one I would definitely back. And in a diverse workplace like ours, where we have people from all over the world, there is no question that there's an issue with people coming from certain backgrounds and from certain places, New Zealanders, for example, who are going to struggle to find a rental property in some parts of Melbourne today. And I think that's an amazing use of science to try and help that process along a little bit.
And it's supportive for the agents, like when you can demonstrate that this outcome is likely to be a better economic outcome. This will be less likely to end in a conflict or a dispute. And that position that tech can take in supporting humans is kind of an important one as well. So just when we were talking about just different people from different backgrounds, then one of my favourite examples of how AI can support agents is the Jiwai.com commission. So Butler One was a robot that Jiwai.com, the Chinese real estate.com part of your group, commissioned. It was made by Single Electronics and sent out to English-speaking countries to attend open homes with real estate agents and help translate and communicate with Mandarin-speaking buyers. So it was like a translator bot. But it was like an iPad on wheels, like most of the robots that we know about. And so the idea that, you would have like a robot hosting an open home, I feel is a bit fringe. Most people, I think, would kick it over and steal the TV. But having a supportive bot there that could help you communicate with different types of people and maybe even, give you feedback on your emotionality and your language and stuff and how you are behaving in that environment. I can tell people that they shouldn't be, act in a certain way with certain groups of people, but what if you could actually say your emotionality, like we registered a change from positive to negative in terms of polarity there on your interaction based with that person. And when you could see that based on different features, then you would know how to precision train and fix that bias.
Training in real estate, particularly coaching for performance and effectiveness and productivity, is a multi-million dollar industry globally. And I could imagine Rita becoming a remarkable coach in your pocket.
Well, it's funny, when we look at what Rita is, I think sometimes she's a tool. She's a tool for data and analysis, analytics. She's a tool for data synthesis. She's an assistant for property managers. She's an assistant for salespeople as well in terms of augmenting prospecting opportunities for them. But I think she's also a manager in that she tracks everything and provides visibility and accountability. And, and I guess perhaps the next manifestation for her could be to be a coach, to even if, she has some kind of precision coaching content that matched the precision algorithm strategy, you know, the reason for the phone call. What if Rita could match that? What if Rita could look at the success rate of your conversion of particular strategies and check the parameter, like check the floor, and then prescribe to your managers, or, you know, your sales managers, or even directly to you, what the best training would be for you to lift your performance, like a sports team. You know, she could be a performance coach.
Well, James, I'm inspired to have found such an amazing person with such an amazing startup. I hope it's inspiration for others in our industry and across Australia, that if you're passionate about a problem, insightful about customer needs, and can find the right team to put together, you can take the world on. Yeah,
you've achieved some great things, and it's been really interesting hearing about how you've approached it and the team. And obviously you and your co-founder are pretty dangerous team, I think. So well done on everything you've achieved so far, and can't wait to see where Rita goes next. And unlike Nigel, I'm quite excited about teenage Rita. I think she'll be pretty cool.
Okay, thanks, Sarah.
Thanks so much for having me, guys. It's been fun.